What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Oak Tree Football channel. And in today's video, I'm going to be going over my top 25 for this week of the college football season. So this week was kind of a quiet week. Most of the top teams, or at least most of the top 5 teams, didn't really play. There were a few teams that did play. The Pac-12 had the second week of the season. Wisconsin played their first game in a few weeks. So there were a few big games and stuff like that. But overall, it was a pretty quiet week, and there aren't too many changes to my top 25. But I'm still going to bring this video to you, and I'm going to get right into it. Starting at 25, I have Louisiana getting back into the rankings. They fell out a few weeks ago after losing to Coastal Carolina, but I feel like they've been good enough since that, and they've just been good enough overall this season to have a spot in my top 25. I still think they're one of the lower top 25 teams, but they got a pretty good win this week. So they're 7-1 right now. They got a pretty good win against South Alabama. It's looking good for them. I believe they clinched the Sun Belt Championship. That may be wrong, but I believe they clinched it. I think they did because the Sun Belt West isn't a very good division, but yeah, so they've been pretty good this season, 7-1. They beat Iowa State earlier in the year, that big upset. They've looked good most of the season. I have them at 25th in the nation. At number 24, I have Auburn, the Auburn Tigers. They haven't played since Halloween when they beat LSU. So really, they haven't done much since then. They've pretty much stayed in the 23-24 area for a few weeks now. But I think this team is looking better than they did earlier in the year. I think they have a chance to not make the SEC championship because I just don't see that happening, but to maybe potentially win out other than their Alabama game. And maybe the game against Texas A&M as well. So Auburn's definitely looked better these past few games when they've played a top 25 team in my opinion, but not an SEC contender right now. At number 23, I have Texas. Texas did not play this week either. They're coming up with a game against Kansas. Texas is 5-2 right now. They've had a few not so great games, but they had that one against Oklahoma State, which was really big. They had a pretty good game against West Virginia in a defensive battle. I think this Texas team looks pretty good right now. I think they are 23rd in the nation. At number 22, I have Tulsa. Tulsa had been number 25 in my rankings for a few weeks, but after beating a very solid SMU team, in my opinion, I had them moving up a few spots. They looked pretty solid in this game. It was 14-0 early, and I thought SMU would pretty much dominate this game, but Tulsa was really able to turn it around well, and I think they did a really, really good job. I think this Tulsa team looked really solid against a very, very good SMU team, and I think they deserve to move up a few spots in the top 25. They have a good shot of making the American Athletic Championship after that win against SMU. So I think they can be a team that stays in the top 25 for the rest of the season. They've looked good so far this season, and until they play Cincinnati, I don't think they'll lose. So, good season so far for Tulsa. At number 21, I have USC. USC did win this week, but it was not a very promising win at all. They defeated Arizona barely. They scored a touchdown with less than a minute left to take the lead, and Arizona is probably the worst team in the Pac-12. Coming into the season, you could argue that it was Colorado, but Colorado is looking pretty solid right now. But yeah, Arizona maybe they're better this year, but USC should have beat them by more as a top 25 team. I'm not sold on USC right now. Their defense isn't great. Coming up with a game against Utah, they should be able to win that one because it's Utah's first of the season. So this team could be looking at a 3-0 record, but I'm really not sure if they deserve it the way they've played. But Keaton Slovis is still a really good quarterback. This team still has some really good weapons like Tyler Vaughns and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think they're fine. I still think they're a top 25 team, but something needs to change if they want to win the Pac-12 championship. At number 20, you got Northwestern. Northwestern got a really big win this week against a very solid Purdue team. I thought that was a very important game that a lot of people weren't really paying attention to. Northwestern got a very good win for them. It was pretty deserving as well. I watched the end of that one, and I thought Purdue looked solid, but Northwestern looked the better team in my opinion. Northwestern looks really good right now, and they're 4-0. I have this team going 1-7 this year, so the fact that they're 4-0 right now is really pretty impressive. Peyton Ramsey's been pretty good this season, and they could really make it to that Big Ten title game. It's extremely unlikely that they're going to be able to make it to the playoffs, but they have a shot of making the Big Ten title game, especially because Wisconsin had to cancel 2 of their games. So, yeah, I mean, this team's looking good. This week they're coming up with a game against Wisconsin, which is going to be so big. There's a couple of big Big Ten games this week. That is one of the bigger ones. And that's really going to show if this team really is solid or if they're just kind of not great, just a average team. Well, they're not average, but just a above average team that will stay near the bottom of the top 25. But still, impressive from Northwestern. If they can win out, this is a team to watch out for, not just this season, but potentially next season as well. Moving on to number 19, you got Liberty. Liberty stayed undefeated this week with a really, really big win against Western Carolina. This Liberty team is for real, in my opinion. I really, really like Liberty's quarterback, Malik Willis. I think the team is looking really good overall. Sure, the competition they've played hasn't necessarily been the best, but this team is looking for real. In my opinion, they're putting up a lot of points every game. They beat good teams, or at least teams in better conferences like Syracuse and Virginia Tech. Coming up with a game against NC State. NC State's been solid this season. That could be a tough challenge. If they win that, they'll likely continue to move up in the rankings. They're looking good right now. At number 18, you got Oklahoma. Oklahoma didn't play this week, but after a poor start for them, they've looked really, really good. They are on a, I believe, 4-game winning streak right now, and they're coming up with a very, very big game against Oklahoma State. They lose this game, their chances of making the Big 12 title game might be done. But if they win, they're going to have a really good shot at making that Big Ten title game. Oklahoma State is a really good team right now. I believe this is going to be College game day, so it's a very important game. It's going to be a big one, a big rivalry as well. If Oklahoma wins that, they'll probably be a top 15 team in the nation. So with the way Oklahoma's been playing recently, I think 18 is a good spot for them. At number 17, you got another Big 12 team in Iowa State. Iowa State also didn't play this week. A lot of teams did not play this week. So no movement for them. But they've been a good team this season. Only 2 losses. Those came in week 1 against Louisiana and against Oklahoma State, one of the better teams in the Big 12. So it's been a good year for Iowa State. Breece Hall has been fantastic. The running back, arguably the best running back in the nation. Brock Purdy hasn't actually been very good, which is pretty surprising. But I mean, Breece Hall has been so good this season. 10-plus touchdowns, 1,000-plus yards, really, really good running back, and he's got a lot more players and people's radar after this very, very good season. Moving on to 16, I got Marshall not moving at all. Marshall got a big win this week against Middle Tennessee. It was expected for them to win this game, but they did a good job. Marshall is looking very good right now. They're 7-0. And their team is looking for real. I mean, I know they really haven't played the best teams overall, but their quarterback, Grant Wells, he's a freshman, but he's actually been really, really solid this season. He threw 5 touchdown passes last game. This team has won every game by double digits, I believe, this season. Their defense is really good. Their offense is able to put up the points when needed. I think they're a really good team right now. And I was considering moving them up to 15. I decided to keep them at 16. But this team is looking good. At number 15, I have Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina is another kind of small school, pretty small school when it comes to football. Only joined the FBS, I believe, a few years ago. That really has just been really, really good this season. Didn't play this week either, but Coastal Carolina, they're looking really, really good. Right now. They've dominated some games this season. They were able to beat Louisiana earlier, which is a really big win for them. Coming up with the game against App State, which could be tough for them. But I think this team has what it takes to win. They have a good chance of winning out. They do have a couple tough games left on the schedule, I believe, App State, and I do believe they have Liberty later in the year, which is going to be tough. But this team, if they can beat App State, they're likely going to go to the Sun Belt Championship. Coastal Carolina is looking really solid, so I mean, good job to them. I really didn't expect this. They have not been good the past few years, but they really changed and played extremely well this season. At number 14, you got Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State did not play this week. The last two games they played, I didn't really like the way they looked. But this game against Oklahoma this weekend is going to be a real test. If they win, I think they're the best team in the Big 12. If they lose, we'll have to see, how they play and how they can do. Other than this Oklahoma game, their season is really simple. So if they win this, they're almost definitely going to the Big 12 championship. They have a lot of talent. Chuba Hubbard is a really good player. Tylan Wallace has been playing fantastic this season. So this team definitely has the pieces to be good. Spencer Sanders has been a good quarterback when he's on the field, I think. Not great, but it hasn't been bad, definitely. And Chuba Hubbard has been a bit more disappointing this season, but he's still been good. The defense has been really solid. I think Oklahoma State is a top 15 team in the nation. I have at number 14. At number 13, you have Georgia. Georgia didn't play this week. I have them moving down a few spots just because of the teams around them that I think are better than them. So Georgia, of course, last game was that loss to Florida. Really didn't look very good in that game at all. Their game was postponed against Missouri this weekend. It was supposed to be this weekend, so they're coming up with the game against Mississippi State. They should win this one. They almost have to win this one. Mississippi State is not a very good football team. So I think they can, get a bounce back win this week. But if they don't, I don't know. This team is kind of free falling right now. They didn't look great offensively against Kentucky. They had the loss against Florida, obviously. They lost to Bama before that. Kind of free falling right now. So we'll see if they can turn that around this week. But it's a pretty easy schedule for them, but they're probably not going to make it to the SEC Championship after losing to Florida. This team has a lot of talent on defense. I'm just not sold on their offense. I don't think it's good enough to really be a great team. And I think maybe next year with a better quarterback, maybe with some better wide receivers. They do have good wide receivers right now, but maybe this team has a chance to win the division, but this year it looks like Florida's going to win it. At number 12, I have Miami. Miami moved down a few spots in my rankings after barely beating Virginia Tech. The reason I have Miami moving down a few spots is just because they've had too many close games against teams that shouldn't necessarily have been close this season. They were close against Virginia. They were close against NC State. They were close against Virginia Tech. All of those teams were unranked. So after the start of the season, when they played really, really well, their past 3 games have been too close for my liking. And I still think this team is good. And I still think there is a slight chance they make it to the ACC Championship. But I just think that they need to win games more comfortably than just a couple points. D'Eriq King's looking like a good quarterback. I think the running game for Miami is really solid. Defense is pretty good, so Miami's definitely a good team right now. But they need to win by more points than just 3 or 2 every game. Moving on to 11, I got Wisconsin. Wisconsin returned this week and got a big win against Michigan. They absolutely dominated this one. They've only played 2 games, but they've looked fantastic in both. As good as Graham Mertz was in that first game against Illinois, the run game was really the star of the show for Wisconsin against Michigan. Mertz really didn't do much in the passing game. He did throw 2 touchdowns, didn't throw any interceptions, which is good. But like I said, the running game was really the main point of this offense. I believe it had almost 350 rushing yards. There was 5 total touchdowns on the ground. The running game looked really, really good, and it really dominated. The defense was really good. Got 2 interceptions on Joe Milton. Wisconsin looked really good, and if they keep it up, they'll probably be in the Big Ten title game in a few weeks. Number 10, you got Oregon. Oregon played their second game of the season, and game was a bit closer than it should have been against Washington State. I definitely think Washington State's improved this season. They've looked better than I expected them to, but I still feel like they could have won this a little more comfortably. Tyler Show played fantastic in the second half. I watched the first half, and Tyler Show and the Oregon offense really didn't play too good, but in the second half, I thought they really started to look good. Tyler Show threw 4 touchdown passes, 3 of them in the second half. C.J. Verdell ended up over 100 rush yards, and the defense had a few turnovers, forced a few turnovers, I believe, in the game. So I think Oregon looked pretty good overall. But if they do want to make it to the college football playoff, they're going to have to elevate their game a little bit. Number 9, you got Indiana. Indiana they look good right now. They have a game against Ohio State this week, which is going to be tough, but they look for real, I think. 4-0 right now. They had a pretty big win against Michigan State. They only put up 24 points, which isn't too much. And Michael Penix made a few mistakes. He threw 2 turnovers. I don't think the offense was all too good in this game, but the defense was dominant, didn't allow a single point. They had 3 total interceptions. Rocky Lombardi left the game earlier because he just wasn't playing well against that Indiana defense. Forced a few fumbles as well. Indiana looked good, and they've looked good all season. They beat Penn State in week 1. They beat Rutgers. They beat Michigan, who was ranked at the time, and then now the big win against Michigan State. If they can beat Ohio State, this is probably a top 5 team in the country. This is potentially a college football playoff team. Indiana's looking really good right now. At number 8, you got BYU. BYU, I believe, did not play this week, but BYU looks really, really good. Zach Wilson looks like he is a really, really solid quarterback. And looks like he could be a really solid draft prospect. If he was playing in a different conference, or obviously in a conference, a good conference, he could be a Heisman candidate with the way he's been playing right now. BYU is going to be tough for them to make the playoffs, definitely. But they're looking really, really solid. They only have 2 games left this season, though, which is going to hurt them. They're going to need a lot of stuff to happen if they want to have a chance to make that college football playoff. And they've been good. So maybe they have a chance, but I think this team comes up just short. Right now I'm in 8th in the country. At number 7, I have Cincinnati. Cincinnati probably should move up after the dominant performance they showed this week, but with the way that 6 teams above them have been playing, I can't really move them up. But still, really, really good performance by Cincinnati. It's going to get them a few more votes, next time around when one of these top 6 teams loses, which is a possibility. Absolutely destroyed East Carolina. I believe it was 55-17. Desmond Ridder is looking really, really good right now as both a runner and as a passer. The run game was really good, almost 300 yards, I believe. The pass game was really good, over 300 yards there as well. This offense was really good against East Carolina, and their defense is great. Their offense does well as well. This Cincinnati team is looking really good. And if any group of 5 team is going to make the playoffs, it's going to be them. They played Tulsa in the last week of the season, and I have Tulsa in my rankings. Tulsa's in the official rankings as well. So if they win that game, they'll probably move up. They're looking really good right now. Number 6, you got Florida. Florida, dominant offensive performance against Arkansas. Their defense, not that great, but Kyle Trask is playing fantastic. This offense is playing fantastic. They have a shot at the college football playoff if they're able to beat Bama in the SEC championship game, where they will likely go. Number 5, you got Texas A&M. Only reason they're above Florida is because they beat them earlier in the season. Texas A&M didn't play this week either, but when they played, they've looked really good. They had a dominant performance against South Carolina the last time out. They were really good against Arkansas as well. Their schedule isn't too tough the rest of the season, so they may find a way to make the college football playoff, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. Number 4, you got Clemson. Clemson is more talented than number 4. The only reason I have them here is because all 3 teams ahead of them haven't lost a game yet this season. But Clemson's looking really good. Trevor Lawrence is set to return in their next game against Florida State. They looked really good against Notre Dame, even in a loss. This team is probably going to go to the ACC championship game, and I think they have a good chance of winning it. I would be pretty surprised to see Clemson not in the playoffs this season, or at least not in the ACC championship. Number 3, you got Ohio State. Their game was canceled against Maryland this week, which I think would have been an interesting game because I like how Maryland have been playing this season. But they likely would have won that game anyway. Coming up with the game against Indiana, this game is going to be really, really important. Ohio State has a really good chance of winning, but who knows? But Justin Fields is playing great. The running game is looking solid. Wide receivers are good. This defense is really solid. They haven't really had a real test, which they will be having against Indiana. But I think this team is good enough. I have them at 3 in the nation. Number 2, you have Notre Dame. Notre Dame beat Boston College this week. The game kind of played out how I expected it to. Pretty close. Notre Dame pulled away a bit later. They have that big win against Clemson, which is really good for them. Number 2 in the nation. And at number 1, I have Alabama. Bama didn't play this week, but, they're definitely the best team in the nation. They've been so good this season. They've just looked like an incredible team. Last time out, they destroyed Mississippi State. I believe they're coming up with a game against Kentucky this week. Should win that one. And probably should make it to the SEC championship game very easily and likely to the college football playoff. So that was my top 25 for week. Going into, I believe, week 12 of the college football season. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you guys did enjoy, don't forget to leave a like, and if you are new around here, feel free to subscribe for more NFL and college football content. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video.